This is a beautiful picture.
There's a lot going on.
There is. Welcome to another zany episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing. I'm Cassie Winter.
Alicia Marshall.
And tonight's topic is body flight. We're going to be watching a really great video with Simeon and Maria. Alicia has a little bit of a preamble before I share the video.
A lot of times when body flight is talked about, it's talked about in relation to like forward and backward movement and like in context of a basic pattern. And so we're kind of going to address that a little bit, but we want to look at it more in the context of like traveling and like moving quickly. So maybe like fast songs, right? As we go through, we're going to be looking at the different ways to achieve body flight. So like managing your center, pressing through the floor, pitch, keeping your heels off the floor, not fully committing to weight transfers, that type of thing. So that is my spiel.
Excellent. All right. I'm dropping the link in the chat. Go ahead and give it a watch and let us know when you're done.
Starts around 20 seconds. So looking at this, Maria is kind of going through this, not fully committing to like the full heel weight once she gets rotated here. And you can see she does press off of that heel, but she isn't settling back onto it. So her hips are staying right above her foot and or feet, whatever's on the ground.
Yeah, and she's actually bringing that left foot directly underneath her center.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going back behind.
Right.
Which is making it even easier for her to redirect herself.
Yeah. So it's important that she is not settling. And so the one thing I wanted to mention was that basically grounding is going to be the opposite of body flight. And so when we're kind of looking through this, we are seeing some moments of grounding, but those are very specifically chosen within like the middle of the pattern. And that's because you really need to be able to be responsive to your partner the whole time. So if you're grounding through the majority of the pattern, you won't be able to.
Yep. Because grounding is about sending your energy downward into the floor, which slows yourself down and makes it harder for your partner to influence your movement.
Right. And you can kind of see when Maria comes to this like side angle here, like she has some settle in the hip, but she's not bending into her knee really. She's kind of more creating that stretch connection rather than placing all of that weight onto the floor into one foot or the other.
Yeah, because she's letting her hips continue that way.
Right. And so it's important, like you can create that stretch with quite a bit of tension at the end of it without having to ground yourself. You have to like make sure that you're not bending into the knees and like relaxing through it. Because if we relax those muscles, we're going to get that settling.
Yeah, because this is a resisted release off of the center counterpoint, and Simeon's doing a really great job of countering in this direction with his body weight.
Yeah.
And so they're using each other to feel control and almost have a sensation of groundedness in this moment, but without the actual tools of grounding because they're depending on each other.
Yeah. I wanted to look at both of them here because we have quite a few different things going on. So we have Maria starting this traveling here. And as she's coming around, she's not like really settling into anything. She's kind of staying upright. So she is staying available to be moved for Simeon. And then as she is coming through these turns here, you can kind of see. So a lot of times with turns, you will see what looks like a heel on the ground. With Maria, you can kind of see more, but it's not. She is staying on those toes as she starts to rotate. And that's what's making it easy for Simeon to not only turn her, but also move her at the same time. If you're doing a turn that stays more in place, you can ground it a little bit more. But here you can see, like, Maria is kind of pulling her center of her body in and up using those muscles so that she is keeping as little weight in the foot as possible. And that's something that is important to think about, is where your center is at. And it's the same thing with like grounding. So if you think of grounding, dropping your center, obviously for body flight, you're going to have to do the other. So it's going to be thinking of like raising everything and pulling it in and up. And for patterns or, movements where you have not just rotation or, just linear movement, if you have both, it's very necessary to have as little resistance in the floor, like with the feet, as possible.
One little tangent. I'd love to highlight how Simeon really takes her arm around her center right here. So you can see right here, her hand is in front of her own forehead and his right arm is fully extended. And that's part of what's allowing her to be so balanced on her feet and upright to be moved, because he's not forcing her to fight where her center is.
Yes, very important. And the other important thing for Maria is that as she's coming out of those turns, because they're going into that hip check, if she was not so pulled in and up, that would be a very difficult movement, and she would not be able to come off the floor as easily. And she also, you can see that swing around, so that hip check wouldn't be as effective.
I wanted to talk about Simeon a little bit. So while we often hear body flight in relationship to follows, almost predominantly, body flight is still important for leaders.
Very much so.
And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that body flight is not necessarily a function of distance. Right here, going into this pattern, Simeon pivots around and he takes one step back, 2 steps back. And that's as far as he travels, but he has excellent body flight through those 2 steps. And it's about an intention to keep progressing through your weight transfers. So there isn't a sudden pause. It isn't step, pause, step, pause. It's step and progress. And so managing your rate of weight transfer is a huge element to creating body flight.
Do you want to explain a little more what you mean by that relation?
Yeah, let's see. I might actually start drawing things. Here we have, I'm going to use his hips as an example. We're going to follow the spacing. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was 8 frames for him to get that far, not very far, right? And then we have him speeding up. So there's this element of adjusting your rate of movement through space. So right here, he kind of slows into moving. That took 8 frames to get to that second position. And then he speeds up and he gets to his next 2 positions faster than he did getting to that second position. And then he slows it down again. So he's preparing to move very quickly, and then he moves quickly. And then he slows down again with control. So the body flight is the part where his rate of weight transfer is fast, and how he manages getting into that speed and then controlling finishing that speed. That's where the control comes in. But the body flight is that transition from here to here, and then there's control on either end. That change in rate of speed is actually a swing content thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you think of a half pipe for snowboarding and you think of the momentum of a snowboarder, they spend more time up here because their momentum is resolving, and then they go really fast through here, and then their momentum slows down and resolves before it starts going the other way again, and then it speeds up again. And this is literally a swing, and that's how you can think of it. But instead of it necessarily going up and down, although there's a little bit of that in West Coast swing in various areas, you think of that same kind of speed change down a slot where you spend more time slowing in to this position, and then you slow out of it, and then you move faster, and then you slow down again, and then you slow out, and then you move faster again, and then you slow in. This is a beautiful picture.
There's a lot going on.
There is. Did you say that Aaron had a question?
Oh, he was just asking, is it because of a swung triple?
So swung triples come from more of a Lindy styling and then an East Coast styling. The offset of the timing of a swung triple, where at 1, a 2, and the is closer to the 2 than it is to the 1. That timing in those historical forms of swing encouraged a delayed weight transfer where the swing of the hips is what is actually being delayed. And that's how you actually get this kind of feeling in the other versions of swing. But you can still see it in West Coast swing. And I actually really like this video because Maria is wearing that really bright silver belt, because you can see the swing of her hips. So you can see how the belt is tipped down to our left right now, and then it tips down to our right, and then it tips back down to the left ever so slightly as she releases that hip. That was probably a more complicated answer than you were expecting, Aaron, but I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, some thumbs up, so thanks.
Great.
I think just because you were touching on it, I would say that for leads, the body flight is moving around the follow.
Yep.
And for follows, it is, very important because you are doing the majority of the traveling.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, whoever's traveling is in charge of the body flight.
Yes.
And it's very rare for both leader and follower to be traveling at the same time.
Right.
Usually if there's the illusion that they're traveling at the same time, it's likely that they're either doing a cha-cha pattern or they're actually taking turns pivoting past each other.
Mm-hmm. So you can kind of see that Simeon is the one doing the majority of the movement here. So Maria is moving, but she is moving so little that she does have more weight committed into both of her feet as she comes through here. And so you can see her heels on the ground, and she doesn't move until he is past her. But then if you look at Simeon's feet, you can see that he is taking like heel to toe motions as he's going around. And so he's never flat on one foot. He's kind of using that foot as a prep initially that is kind of flat, but it's only flat for like half a second. And that's, you can see he bends into his knee to press out of it, and he releases the toe. And at the same time, he is also taking his center and doing a little bit of an arc with it, which is necessary because otherwise they would end up with uneven like hand placement. So it would be probably more on his side than her side. So for the body flight, it's really important that he is having that arc, controlling the center, and also having those feet not flat on the ground.
And side note, I really appreciate how he is doing the majority of the work to get the hands over her head, especially just as a leader. If you're doing barrel rolls, it's your job to do most of the work for that, especially if you're asking the follow to do the traveling. Side tangent. Barrel rolls are my kryptonite.
Yeah.
They're the reason my right shoulder is busted.
Looking through those rotations, seeing that they are managing their body flight in that they're not sinking into the ground. Their heels are off the ground. And you can see that, you know, Maria is really in a relevated position. So that shows that she is bringing her center in and up. Which is important as you are passing so closely to someone. You're able to react a lot faster to either where you're being placed or where, you know, your follow is ending up.
We should do an entire episode on telemarks. Hashtag evil cackle.
Aaron said, what's a telemark again?
Oh, it's actually what they just did. So,
yeah.
Right here, Simeon brings Maria across the slot. And so now technically Maria is on the rail and Simeon travels down the slot. And this moment right here is where so many people struggle because the follow will still be in the way on the slot and then the leader will be trying to go around them on the other rail. And that's just exhausting. But you can see right here, Maria is on one floorboard facing perpendicular to the slot. So that makes it really easy for Simeon to get past her. So that's a telemark, basically where the leader takes the follow's momentum down line, takes it for themselves. It's like one of those desk toys, which, what are they? They're the kinetic desk toys. Newton's cradle, it's like that. So the follow's traveling down the slot, turning. The leader takes that momentum for themselves and just sets the follow off the slot on the rail and then takes their momentum for themselves. And it's a lot of fun.
So I know what I was wanting to look at here is this traveling down line.
Oh, hey, look, cha-cha pattern.
Yep. So this is one of the times where you'll see more simultaneous movement. And you can see at the start, they both raise their centers.
Right here.
Right there. And then they stay there until they need to catch right here. And as they pass each other again, they go back up. So that's not only creating more space for them to rotate past each other, but it's also helping them both move easier. And so, like I was saying earlier, there is a specific moment of chosen grounding within this, even though it is progressing the whole time.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
You can see Simeon at the end of this pattern going back. So we're grounding here for a prep. Coming back up to get that body flight to rotate. And then you can see Simeon come back down and ground himself.
Yep.
So those moments are really important when they are rotating down the line. That's when they really need to both have their centers up and have really good body flight.
He dances so much like Kyle. It's like,
yeah, he does. Once again, we're getting into this rotation. And you can see that Maria right here is grounding herself. And as he's bringing her forward, there's some rotation happening. And so you can see that she slowly brings everything up. And then she has a quick moment where she's settling right here to really lean into that arm that he has around her to prep for some momentum to unwind. But as soon as she starts rotating again, she comes out of that grounding, lifts that center again, brings the heels back off the ground because she once again needs a lot of body flight to get around.
yep.
Obviously, she also needs that tension and momentum from the lead, but that won't help if you're not like lifted. It just won't do anything.
Yep. I want to highlight right here how seamlessly Simeon connects to her in this moment, because the majority of the connection is coming from his forearm across her ribs, whereas the hand going over her head in a face loop is an accessory. It's not leading anything. It's just the cherry on top, whereas the connection is her rotating forward and running into his forearm. Mm-hmm. And that's what's slowing her down.
Right. And that's why she knows she can take that opportunity to do some styling.
Yep.
Because she's running into the arm there. And so she knows she's going to hit the end of that rope and then be unwound. And I really do love the styling choice she made.
It's lovely. I know we're not talking about this, but her spotting.
Yeah.
So good.
It is.
Like, it's perfect. As someone with a bad neck who can't spot without getting really dizzy, it's like, jealous. But anyways.
Spot envy.
Right? Spot envy. New term. It'll go in the dictionary.
So right here, I wanted to look at two things. I wanted to look at the like seamless transition for Maria, and then that transition for Simeon as well. So you can see she's pretty lifted, and then as she goes into that duck, she's bending the knees, settling into it. And she's choosing, I want to do something, you know, with the leg extended. And so she's going into that even more so. But it's all very continuous. There's not a moment where you're like, oh, she dropped.
Yeah, she's so confident with her choice. Because basically, Simeon's leading a neck roll.
Yeah.
And catching her shoulder. But you can see from right here to here, that's literally just one frame. And she's choosing what shape she wants to be in for this. And she's demanding that he support her. Not in like a hijacky way, but like...
Great word choice for that.
Yeah, demand you support me. But this is what comes from having a partner that you really trust and you dance with a lot. Yeah. Because I would not do that with the majority of people that I dance with unless I like really trusted them. I would take more time to get into that. Exactly. But she just comes out of that neck roll, is like, bam, this is what we're doing. And he's like, cool, I got you.
Aaron said, I'm the captain now. Yes. So looking at what Simeon is doing here, he also is transitioning, but he's transitioning from a more stable, grounded position into something that has more body flight because he needs to move around her. And one thing that is different here, so you can see that bend in the knee, and you can see that he's not lifting in the same way that you have been seeing. And that's because of that tension connection, that counterbalance. So he can kind of do whatever he needs to do, even when he is a little bit more into the ground, but he's just not fully committing. He's kind of like riding her momentum, basically.
Yeah. He's just trying to create equal and opposite for her. Mm-hmm. Then one thing I wanted to really highlight at the beginning, because as a leader, if you start moving around the follow before you're counterbalanced, you're gonna knock her over. Mm-hmm. So right here, in that moment that I talked about earlier, where Maria's like, boom, this is what we're doing. Yep. Simeon does a delayed weight transfer. You can see he does a strong heel lead with his left foot, and he's using that as a braking mechanism. Mm-hmm. So that way he can counterbalance her properly as he shifts his weight onto that. Because in a counterbalanced like ride like this, it's really important that essentially the leader is following the follow in the connection as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, riding the momentum rather than guiding, like initiating.
That shape.
I know, it's so nice.
So good.
So I wanted to look at this grounding that's happening here for that redirect. And then because she's going into rotation, immediately raising everything again. You can see she's bringing her body in and up because she really needs that body flight. We have a rotation as well as traveling down line. And when you're that close, you also need to be able to move, like I said earlier.
Another way to think of that helps me with that lifting thing, because with grounding, it's about sending your weight towards the floor. Yep. So while your body weight does not change, it's about where it's moving towards. So it's moving towards the ground vertically, you're grounding yourself. If it's moving away from the ground vertically, you're releasing your weight from the floor. So it's easier to move yourself.
Yeah. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was Simeon and his little chasse that he does there. Because in order to do that, you need to have good body flight. One thing that you're not seeing that you have been seeing is that lift. There is one that is ever so slight, but it's because he's pressing out of the floor, not because he is physically bringing everything in and up. So the way that he is creating the body flight here is he's pressing out of that floor, but then also he is not committing his weight fully to one foot. So there's not a point when one foot is completely touching the floor and it is fully weighted. You can see the pitch that he has is what's allowing the feet to be free in order to do that. If he was more upright and did not have that pitch, he would have to, when he pressed out of the floor, he would end up with like this movement. So his head would go from like, you know, this position, it would raise and then come back down level. But because he has that pitch, he's able to move the legs independent of the upper body. And so you're not getting that up and down of the chasse. And chasse, step together, step.
Yep.
Clarify.
And his pitch is also allowing a really nice swing of the hips. So right here, his left, wait, yeah. So you can see right through here, it's very obvious if you watch the hem of his t-shirt, how his hips are swinging just a little bit.
Yep. And then he comes out of that, grounds himself. In order to have more powder press out and give her more momentum. I can't talk, apparently.
Okay, from that grounded position, he's able to use some contra body, and it's through him turning his upper body to the right that's giving Maria that power. He's not just like sending his hand up and over in a rainbow fashion. He's also twisting back to his right really quickly. And following through with it. That's the other thing that's really important. So he preps it as he grounds himself, and then he turns to the right. And it's not done here. He's continuing to turn to the right, and it's that momentum that's actually carrying his weight transfer, so he's fully committed to his right foot at this point.
And you can see that pitch change that he goes through.
Yeah, so right now he's pitched screen right.
And immediately goes and
this way. Yeah.
And that plus the strength that he's using to press through the floor is what's giving him the body flight right now. He's not necessarily pulling anything in and up. He does need to be a little bit more grounded because he needs that power to redirect her in such a complicated movement.
You can even see he leads her with so much power there that I think she actually feels like he wanted her to turn again.
Yeah.
Which is why there's this ever so slightly awkward camera section here. It's like, forearm. She's like, oh, just the one? Okay.
So as Maria preps to go into this rotation, she knows that she is going to need to be easily moved. So as soon as she presses out of that back foot, she comes off those heels and raises everything up and in. And she's not moving, so she doesn't have to do too much to like control her center or anything. And theoretically, she could have done it less up because she isn't traveling once she gets into this unwind here.
Simeon does an excellent job of going around her so that way she can stay in place.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to look at for him.
Yeah. Great minds, you and I.
Yeah, and so here we can see another good example with Simeon of not bringing things up in order to have good body flight, but pressing out. And he's really using some pitch in his body in order to have the legs free to move, but also have the power to move her where he's wanting her to go. Another thing is if he were to be more upright, so you can see he has quite a bit of bend in the knee as he goes through this, but if he were to press all the way out and straighten the legs, it would take him more time to travel across because then you're adding a height change as well, which is going to slow down the movement.
And he'd be more likely to get knocked over by Maria's momentum.
Also that.
Yeah. Because the pitch is very much counterbalancing it. He's sending his hips further away from Maria so he can counterbalance her momentum. He's closer to her with his upper body and head weight so that way he can actually reach her comfortably for her frame. And then small detail here, but as he starts shifting his weight to his left foot, he looks to the right, past his right shoulder, right?
Yep.
Here you can see. And that leading with his head weight here gives him more strength to drive his left side forward to bring Maria into this position right here.
Yep. Yep.
So it doesn't just look nice, but it's really important functionally right here that he turns to his right with his head.
And that's something that's not messing with his body flight. It's helping it as well. Yeah. There are other ways that you could go about doing the same thing, but they would be more of a hindrance to his body flight. And the flow of this pattern wouldn't be quite as smooth and it would be slower.
I think that was the last one.
Yeah, we are right on time.
Look at that. We're getting better. So exciting. Any questions, comments, concerns, bad jokes?
I was trying to type it really, really fast, but I didn't actually get it. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on body flight versus having shoulder movement. Question? Answer? Do you want to talk about that in some other thing? Like, those are two things that I feel like I've always struggled to like balance. When you're thinking about body flight, I don't know. Personally, I feel like I get very set in my shoulders and I'm like, I can't do anything here. We must stay because it's part of my body, which must be flying.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's a really good idea for another episode.
That's going to get that sort of thing. I feel like that's a very hard thing to balance, at least personally. And I don't know, it's sort of a cool thing to think about because how often do we actually think about like having some upper body excitement?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of my own biggest critiques for the longest time because they told me my upper body was really rigid. And that came from having the point at which my contra body happens was too low on my body for me. So I have such a tall torso, and I also did a lot of Latin dancing where the Cuban motion comes from like the belly button area down, and that's kind of where you're twisting.
Everything is like, this is where you do the movement.
Yeah. What made a huge difference for me was raising it to kind of where my bra strap meets in the back. So that's where I'm creating my contra body from. And that freed up mobility in my upper body like nobody's business. Yeah. But yes, that sounds like a really cool episode to do. Yeah,
anyhow, I think that would be something cool to work in because if I've had a problem with it, if you've had a problem with it, like I'm sure other people have dealt with that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah. So next week, we're going to be talking about internal versus external preps for turns. That's going to be really fun because what is basically under your control versus what's under your partner's control. What happens in which role. Again, it's another one of those topics that we could wax poetic on for hours and hours and hours. So we'll only be skimming the surface next week, but really important and fun topic. And then all I know is Bryn is on August 13th. That's all I remember. It's getting closer. I'm very excited. And we haven't actually picked a video of hers for that yet because she didn't have like a strong preference. So if there is a dance video of Bryn Anderson that you absolutely love and would want to hear her talk about, just send us the link and let us know and we'll run it by her. So we'll probably also do a little bit, if she has the time, on her most recent routine. So not just a Jack and Jill, but her most recent routine with Ken.
That's definitely something I want to talk to her about. I love the style change in it.
Yep. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We hope you have a lovely evening. The recording of this will be up this Sunday at noon Pacific on our YouTube channel, which now that we have over 100 subscribers, what has an actual like custom URL? So www.youtube.com/c/nerdywcs. What? All right. Thank you all again for joining us. See you next week. Oh, look. Flight. Body. Flight.
Literally.
The pun returns. And you're totally right. This guy is just so...
I was going to say something about him. He's
so
just like
stoked the whole time. I too feel this way in my heart.
The like first time I noticed him, I was like, same. That was my thought.
Erin's really chill, and I'm like, what expectations do you have of me? May I have a exactly what you need?
I just got very pink because I like turned on the video.
I'm just like, did you suddenly get sunburnt?
Yeah. Just a second.
Nobody expects the Zoom sunburn.
Whatever the opposite of that is, that's what I have. I have the Zoom ghost face. You've got some nice flow going on there. I haven't seen your hair this long in a long time.
What was that?
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Oh wow.
It is miserable.
I got my hair cut today.
Yeah,
I
you
feel
look nice.
free. I feel free.
Looks
That's
good.
so clean. I think in this call, if you don't have a cat in the room, you're sort of the outlier at this point, right?
Yeah.
I got a dog.
Well, Erin, we know who's setting trend that's not going anywhere. I don't know.
Notice.
It's fine. I just want to sit with you guys. It's fine.
So every day when my boyfriend comes home, he does floor time with my cat. He literally lays on the floor. They lay together. He won't do it with me. He doesn't care if I lay on the floor. It's specifically like my guy is on the floor. I need to go and join the sausage fest over here. But mom, it's like, get off the floor, mom. What are you doing? I don't know.
You're
It's
not cool,
real.
Mom.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're so uncool. Why do you do
Yes. Okay.
I love how halfway through they just like disappear and then it says
I know.
Well,
Whoever's on the camera is just too mesmerized to realize, oh, Pan. That makes sense.
huh?
All right. Is the echo gone now that the screen share is over? Great. That's
Right.
encouraging. Let's try this again. We're going to try not sharing computer sound and see if that helps. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Now that I can't see the chat and know what's going on.
I think everyone's good.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yay for Zoom being special tonight. Literally did nothing different from previous weeks.
Of course not.
Ugh.
Where were we?
Oh no, my cat is approaching. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Excellent.
Also, I just realized when you said subscribe to the YouTube, I didn't subscribe, so I just subscribed. I'm so sorry. Guys, I'm out of practice. Now I have to figure out how to get